Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm very much audible. You can all hear me loud and clear. Good morning. My name is Surabhi Paul. I'm part of the product marketing team in VMware. Welcome to this webinar. Today's topic is delivering turnkey load balancing in VMware Cloud with day zero automation. Very exciting topic. We have been doing this webinars on every month, and we run these in different time zones. So thanks a lot for attending our webinar today. I just have few housekeeping guidelines before I turn it to Nick to begin his presentation as well as the demo. Format of this webinar is that it's about 60 minutes long. The first part will be a quick presentation, and then Nick will be showing us a live demo, and we'll engage in quick Q&As as well. So this session is being recorded, so you will get the recording as well as the slides in a follow-up email. And if you find the content really useful, feel free to share it with all your co-workers who are not able to make it this time. You can use the Q&A window to ask questions, and during the presentation and the demo, we'll try to keep it more interactive. We'll pause and try to answer all the questions that you have. So without further ado, let me introduce you to our speaker today, Nicholas Bale. Nick, it's all yours.
Thank you very much, Surabhi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, very loud and nice.
And you can see my screen,
yes.
Right?
Yes,
nice.
we can.
So thank you everyone for joining us this morning. My name is Nicholas Bale, and I am based in Europe, belonging to the EasyAvi business unit, delivering workshop and webinar for the NSX ALB or the AVI solution. So today we will cover this following agenda. So first we will briefly speak about VMC on AWS, just to make sure we are all on the same definition of this. And then we will speak about the load balancing challenges in the public cloud. And then we will speak about why AVI is the best solution for VMC in AWS. And then we will speak about this EasyAvi Fling tool that helps to create AVI in VMC, and we will demonstrate that. So most of the time we will do a demonstration, but first we will have few slides to review and just to make sure we are all on the same page. So having said that, let's get starting with the first section, VMC on AWS. So you know that most of the customers, they have an on-prem SDDC where they are using vSphere, but they have the aim or the intent to use the public cloud. And to do so, they want to make sure they can bring elasticity in the public cloud by leveraging the same tools that they are using on-prem. And one way of achieving this is definitely to use a VMware Cloud on AWS, VMC. And therefore you can use and you can migrate your workload from on-prem to the public cloud, leveraging the same API endpoints, the same toolings. So usually on-prem vCenter, you are using vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. And this is exactly the same in VMC. You can deploy your virtual machine as you do on-prem. You can use virtual storage and the virtual network as you do on-prem, but leveraging the elasticity of the public cloud. So this VMware Cloud on AWS, as the name suggests, reside in AWS. So you have a specific VPC, and on the top of this specific VPC, we will build for you an infrastructure made of vSphere, vSAN, and NSX. So it relies on a bare metal server, so it scales a lot, and you can you can go to the VMware Cloud console, and you can create an SDDC in a matter of minutes. So in about 90 minutes, you can create from scratch an SDDC, and then you will have your very well-known interfaces vCenter to create VMs, NSX for the network side, and you are good to go. So what can you do? You can basically migrate virtual machines from on-prem to a VMC on AWS. So you understand how quickly it is, and you understand that when you know very well those products, vCenter and NSX mainly, it's very useful, it's very handy to migrate VMs to this kind of very elastic architecture. And to do that, you can use different products, HCX, for instance, to make sure you can very easily migrate VM from on-prem to AWS or to VMC. And it's very useful. So you can definitely migrate application from on-prem to VMC. But at some point, you will need to think about your load balancing solution. So in VMC, you can rely on the AWS services. You can consume AWS services, as you can see in the slide, like S3, Lambda, Redshift, and also ELB or others AWS services. This is a good start, and this is something that you can use. But what you are looking in terms of load balancing is a solution that gives you an enterprise-grade load balancing solution in combination with elasticity, with flexibility. And when we think about such solution, we are basically thinking about, I want to see and I want to consume the native load balancers as I can find them in Azure, AWS, because those guys, they provide a great orchestration, a great automation. But I want to have also something which provides a good feature set, not only in terms of local load balancing, but in terms of GSLB and also application security. I want something which allows me to troubleshoot very easily. I want something which allows me to scale very easily. And I want something which allows me to secure my workloads, my application, wherever they are. It could be on-prem, it could be on VMC or anywhere else. So what you are looking is really the best of both worlds, the automation and orchestration of the cloud-native load balancer solution, and also the feature set, the enterprise-grade feature set of the legacy virtual load balancers. And you don't want to choose between one or the other. Why is that? Well, when you think about bringing a legacy load balancer into the VMC environment, it works, that's true, but you will have a lot of strong challenges. What do I mean? Well, if you deploy an active standby pair as it works for the legacy load balancer, you will have one of your load balancer which will be active and the other one which will be in standby mode, just waiting for the active one to die. So it's not very cost effective first, but not only. If you think about scale, how can you scale such active standby pair? Well, actually you can't. So one of the added value or the value proposition of VMC is this elasticity. But with a legacy load balancer, you don't have these elasticity features. You have something very static, something not flexible at all, not agile at all. So you lose first this elasticity. Then you have something else as an issue, which is multi-vendor support. Well, if something happens, you will always struggling finding where is this issue. First, because it doesn't bring any analytics or observability logs, real-time metrics, and also because you will have this finger pointing between the different vendor supports departments saying, oh, it is VMC or it is your load balancer, and it goes like this for ages. So it's not good for the business. And if you are using, on the other hand, native load balancers, you will get some issue because basically the load balancer, the native load balancer will be outside your SDDC. So basically, the traffic will go in and out from your SDDC, so it will not work very well. And also, last but not least, you have this issue about limited feature sets. Think about security, think about web application firewall. Those features, they don't exist in such a native load balancer solution. And also, you have the same issue with this multi-vendor support issue, where if something happens, you will call a VMware and probably you will have an issue talking with those different multiple support teams. So you understand this is not ideal solution, either the legacy load balancer or the native load balancers. So we do think and we know that AVI for VMC brings benefit. First, with AVI, you have an elastic load balancer solution, and we will review why a little bit later. You have something which brings high scalability, high performances, but not only. From day one, we thought about this troubleshooting issue that you may have with your application. So out of the box, we provide visibility and analytics, logs, real-time metrics to help you to make sure that you can troubleshoot your application in a very fast and effective way. And last but not least, we bring automation to make sure you can install AVI on the top of VMC without a lot of difficult procedures or difficult PDF to follow. So basically, and this is the demonstration that we will show you later, you can install AVI on the top of VMC in a matter of few clicks. And to do that, we will present this EasyAvi Fling that we released a few weeks ago. And last but not least, overall, we provide the feature set of the legacy load balancers plus the orchestration and automation of the native load balancers from the cloud, from the public cloud. So this is a few reasons that explain you how easy it is to use AVI first and how it will simplify your operation and bring benefits to your organization. So why can we say that we have such unique benefits? Well, it's because from day one in AVI, we have separated the control plane and the data plane. You really have the AVI controller at the top of this diagram, which is the brain of the solution. And then the AVI controller knows your environment, it knows where your workload, it knows where your application they reside, and it can automatically spin up, it can automatically do the scaling of your application to make sure that if something happens, if all of a sudden you have a peak of traffic, you will make sure that you have a sufficient data plane. And we call the data plane the service engines. And one good thing about this solution, it is cloud agnostic. So you can run AVI on bare metal, virtualized VMs, and also you can run AVI on the top of containers. And it can run on-prem, it can run on the public cloud. So if you think about the use case where you have an on-prem vCenter deployment and you want to migrate your application to VMC, it works well because you can have AVI on-prem with a certain level of security, good features for load balancing and GSLB, and you can apply exactly the same security level and features on VMC. So it's really a cloud agnostic solution. Of course, as any SDN software-defined architecture, we bring this central orchestration. As I mentioned, the AVI controller is really the brain of the solution. And because it knows your environment, it can do the scaling. For one application, let's say today you have 2 service engine or 2 load balancer working in active-active fashion, and tomorrow you need to bring more, it's not a problem, you can scale your application out. And the day after, you don't need the 3rd service engine, well, you can just destroy it, or the AVI controller can do that for you. So something else that this architecture brings is resilience or self-healing. So basically, This kind of feature, if something happens to your data plane, the AV controller will automatically self-heal your data plane, your service engine. We bring also a good set of automation features. And when I say automation, I'm not thinking about REST API, as this is a must for any product. I'm thinking about the built-in automation that the AV controller brings. All the things that are built in that you don't need to write scripts, Ansible playbook, Terraform, or anything else. Well, this is built in inside the product, and this is provided out of the box. So automation is something quite important, and everything in AV is based on automation. So something quite important to remember. And last but not the least, we bring analytics and observability from the service engine. So the service engines, they are basically in a strategic location between the user of your application and the backend server. And at the middle here, as they are working as an application layer 7 proxy, they can see all good information about your traffic. So instead of dropping those information, we are sending those information to the AV controller or to any other tools that you are using to make sure that we can help with very fast troubleshooting. And this is something quite unique, the amount of logs and real-time metrics that we bring to help you for this. And we can use this as well to automate AV itself. What else? You can automatically update many things in the AV controller, as we have the AV Pulse service, which allows you basically to update GeoDB IP database or file or WAF signatures and other things in the AV controller. So definitely this unique architecture brings a lot of benefits. So in terms of features, what do we bring? Well, as I mentioned, just as in the slide before, we have this software-defined platform with this AV controller, which brings orchestration, central management, and we understand now that this architecture brings elasticity, resilience or self-healing, automation, and also update of different components of the solution. But these features, they allow you to provide data plane feature sets like local traffic management, local load balancing, global traffic management or GSLB, application security, including web application firewall. And if you want to enjoy those features in your containerized environment, we provide container ingress services. So this is what you will get out of the box with the AV solution. And of course, for each of these features, you will get analytics and observability. So idea is we don't want to blind you for automation and for troubleshooting. We want to provide as much as we can logs and real-time metrics to help you, especially for your troubleshooting. So if someone rings you and tells you, oh, my application is slow, it's not a problem with AVI. You don't need to go for crazy TCP dumps. You just need to go to the AVI UI to do 1 or 2 clicks, and then you will get the result, and you can easily narrow down the root cause of this problem, avoiding the finger pointing between different teams in your organization, saying this is a network, this is the application, and it goes like this for hours. So the business is suffering. So this is the product capabilities of the AV solution. Now let's think about how can I bring the AV solution on the top of VMC? Well, this is where this EasyAvi Fling tool comes in. So idea is, instead of providing a huge PDF where you have plenty of steps to follow, probably you will not understand everything. The idea is, we thought from the beginning, we want to help you in this journey to bring AVI on the top of VMC. So the intent is you deploy this EasyAvi Fling inside your SDDC or outside your SDDC. And then in a matter of few clicks, you can automate day 0 and D1 operation in your VMC on AWS. So you start this, you click on few options and parameters that I will show you in a matter of minutes, and you have in about 20 to 30 minutes your AVI on the top of VMC deployed. So idea behind the scene is to simplify the deployment of AVI on the top of VMC. So how does it work? Well, you have this EasyAvi Fling here, and this EasyAvi Fling will communicate with the API endpoints. So you will need to have an internet access, this VM, which is an appliance, an OVA. And once you can get the internet access, you need to make sure that you can access to the VMC API, NSX API, vCenter API, and AV controller API. Once this is done, what he will do, he will communicate with those API endpoints, and all of a sudden, he will create an AV controller on the top of your VMC infrastructure, and it will also create service engines automatically. In VMC, we have this specificity that with the AV controller will not create automatically the service engine. For those who know very well AV, basically we are working in no access or no orchestrator mode, so the EasyAvi Fling will do that for you. So you don't have to worry about doing that manually. The EasyAvi Fling will do it for you. So where you can deploy or you can download, sorry, this EasyAvi Fling, you can just use this URL, and I will just pass this URL on the chat window. If you go there, you can download the OVA, and from here you can install again this EasyAvi Fling inside the SDDC or outside the SDDC. Just let me show you this URL here. So you will end up in this website. You just need to accept the term and condition basically, and you can download this OVA. And after, as any OVA, you can install it in your vCenter, again, inside your SDDC or outside your SDDC. So having said that, let's do the demonstration. Unless Serbi, do we have questions that we want to answer now?
Yeah, can you talk more about, Nick, the question is on day zero automation. What are some of the key elements that it addresses, the EasyAvi tool addresses for day zero automation? Why is it important, and why is it so much of a challenge?
So on day zero operation, what you will do is basically create your AV controller and also create your service engines. So when you think about this, you may think, oh, that's not a big deal to do that manually, and you can do it manually, that's true. But if you think I want to create a redundant AV controller, then in this case, you will need to create 3 virtual machines. And then after that, you will need to do the AV configuration manually. And then after, you will need to bring your service engine up to deploy them. But it seems to be an easy task, but it takes quite a lot of time because you will need to download an OVA from the AV controller. Then you will need to generate a token from the AV controller. So what I'm saying is you can do that everything manually. That's totally doable, but it takes a lot of time. So the intent of this Fling is really to, in a matter of minutes, to do that for you. And then when you think about the steps that I have described, we have interaction with NSX, we have interaction with vCenters API, and even sometimes VMC API. So idea behind this scene is to bring only one UI for the day zero automation, and then you will orchestrate what needs to be done in vCenter, what needs to be done in AV, and what needs to be done in VMC and also in NSX. So it's a matter of saving times.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, Nick. Thank you.
All right, so having said that, let's start the demonstration and let me show you how it works. So going back here, so this is the Fling, right? And I have deployed this Fling inside this SDDC. This is this OVA basically, and this is the UI. So the first thing that you will need to do when you start this Fling, you will need to HTTPS the IP of this Fling, and then you will need to go to this deployment AVI images. So what are we doing here? We just need to download basically an image, an AVI image, to make sure we have it and we can deploy it later on. So right now you can see that prior to this webinar, I have downloaded 20.1.4 and 20.1.5. So once you have this image downloaded, and it's very easy to download, you just need to fill basically this myvmware.com username and myvmware.com password, and then you can download it. Once you have done it, you go to deployment, and here you can create one or many deployments. So I have created one prior to this webinar, but I will show you the wizard to create a new one. So you click on new deployment here, and you select what kind of deployment you want to deploy. And for the time being, we support only VMC. Later, we will probably add other environment, but right now it's only VMC. So you click on VMC here, you click next. And here, what you need to provide is an access token. So this access token, it comes from the VMC API. So if I go to my VMC console here, just to show you, just to make sure we are on the same page here. Takes always a few seconds to load this console here. So if I go on this guy, I think is this guy here, my account, you see you can define from here an API token. Okay, you define an API token, you copy it somewhere and you paste it here. And what this API token will do, it will allow us to communicate with the VMC API. Okay, so you click next, and automatically this EasyAvi Fling will tell you, okay, which organization inside VMC you want to use. I can see my account is linked with a lot of organization. I know I need to use this RVPM organization. You select your organization, and from here, you can select which SDDC you can use. So inside this organization, if I show you this guy here, just be patient for 1 second. So
while this is going on, Nick, the question is, Manish is asking how soon we can expect support for AVS and GCVE environments. And also, is it possible today to consume AVI as SaaS offering in AVS and other hyperscalers?
So for AVS and GCVE, this is definitely on the roadmap. I can't commit for a date, but it should be soon. I know that the AVS official support will happen very soon, and for the EasyAvi, that will be probably a few weeks after. But I can't commit for a date here because this is not fully defined. And for the question about SaaS, this is something that we are working on. So probably by the end of the year or by beginning of next year, I would say we can enjoy the SaaS offering with the AVS solution. If you need a very precise date, probably you can. We need to come back to you offline. So here you have two SDDCs, right? The AVI SaaS Dev and AVI PM Dev. So this is the list that I can see here. So you select your AVI PM Dev because this is the ones that I want to use. and then automatically it retrieves the vCenter API. And this is here the configuration of your AVI controller. So quite simple here. You select how many vCPU you want to use for your AVI controller. You select the size of the memory, how many memories I want to use for my AVI controller. Same for the disk. And then you need to select the network, on which network this AVI controller will reside. So here I can select, for instance, this network here, EasyAvi v2 management, and then you have the choice. You can either use DHCP, in this case you don't need to provide any IP address, or if I disable DHCP, you need to select which IP address you want to use for this AVI controller. So let's say you want to use .5, and then after, as I told you, you can decide, do I want a standalone AVI controller, or do I want a cluster of 3 virtual machines for redundancy? So if you need a cluster, just you enable this option, and then it will ask you for the IP of the controller IP2 and the controller IP3. So you just need to select what you want. And then for those who know AVI, you can always configure a floating IP address if you want. And same, you just need to specify which IP address you want to use if you want to use a floating IP address. Specifically for VMC, you can assign a public IP to your AVI controller if you want to make it reachable from the internet without going for network address translation. In this case, you can use this option to create a public IP for your AVI controller. So once you have done with this configuration, you click next, and from here you will define how many service engine you want to create. And kind of same parameters, you define the number of service engine from 0 to 4, and the number of CPU, the number of, or the size of the disk, the HA mode. You remember I told you that in AVI we support active-active, and the memory of the service engine. So once you have defined this, you click next, and now it's about the placement of the service engine. So you need to define what is my service engine management network, and here again this is exactly the same kind of parameters, DHCP enabled or disabled. If you disable it, you can basically configure statically the IP address, or you can keep it automatic if you enable DHCP here. And then here you will need to configure the IPAM inside of AVI to make sure you can automatically create some pools. So here it's just about configuring a range here that you may use later. Okay.
So Nick, Abdullah is asking, can I only use the Fling tool for POC and not for production deployment purposes?
So that's a very good question, and per definition, a Fling is not officially supported by VMware, and I want to make this clear. However, nothing prevents you to use this in production to deploy AVI. We are checking the software, we are doing some tests, but it's not officially part of the product. So it's really, the answer is really up to you. Of course, you can definitely use it for proof of concept, but if you want to deploy AVI in your SDDC, you can use it as well. So going to the next stage, on the top of this installation, you can definitely create a test application. So this test application will be a simple test application. So basically what we will do here, we will ask you, okay, on which network you want to place this application. So we have defined a backend, a network here, and I can use DHCP, for instance. And you remember before, I told you you need to first download the AVI image from myvmware.com directly using the Fling. So this is where you can retrieve basically the images that you have downloaded. So you can select 20.1.4 here or 20.1.5, as I have downloaded only those two guys here. So you select the version, and then you click next, and then you give it a name and you submit. So this is the wizard that you will need to follow to make sure you can create an AVI deployment on the top of a VMC. Now, what will happen when you click submit here? So if I give it a name like this, you see I can click submit. So I will not do that here because it will take about half an hour to do that. But what I have done, I have created exactly the same here. So it's a pre-recorded video, but you will see it's very fast because I just fast forward the video to make sure it doesn't take too much time during the webinar. So if I just hit the play button, so you see here now it's deploying everything. So you have different steps here. So it tells you the NSX configuration is done, the content library configuration is done. Now is deploying the VMs, is deploying or configuring the AVI controller. And the step after should be configuring the AVI cluster. So you understand here now we have the AVI cluster, which is fully automated and fully configured. Now the AVI Cloud for VMC is also configured. And the next one will be to create or to deploy service engines, as you can see here. So this Fling will create the service engine. And here it is, the deployment is finished. So again, I fast forwarded this video just to make sure it fits the time that we have this morning. But as an output here, you can see that I have now my API or my AVI controller URL for my 3 virtual controller, for my 3 nodes controller. I have also an HTTP VS, a DNS VS, and I have also my AVI username and my AVI password, which has been generated automatically. So what I'm saying here, I'm good to go. The AVI deployment is done. So I did something else. I went for a coffee or whatever you want, and now everything is done. And this is exactly what you can see on the vCenter, which is not this window, sorry, on the vCenter UI here. I have my 3 controllers, AVI controllers. I have my 2 backend servers for my basic application, and I have even 3 service engines that this Fling has created. So what next? Well, let me fast forward this. So what I will do, I copy this password and I'm going to the AVI controller here, just using my admin username and this password that the EasyAvi Fling has created. And what I can see my 2 applications, very basic, has been created. But before that, you see here, all the cluster is done for you. So if I wait, all those 3 guys, they are active. Cluster IP has been configured as I fill out the webinar, the wizard, and you can see the 3 IPs that I have configured for my AVI controller. Now, if I go to application, again, I can see my 2 very basic applications, but more importantly here, I can see that my 2 service engines, they have been created by this EasyAvi Fling with a static IP address, as you can guess it by seeing the IPs. And last but not least, a basic application has been created on the top of this automated installation. And if I try to just reach this application, you will see that it works, and you will see that this is basic round-robin load balancing algorithm. And as I told you before, in AVI, we bring quite a lot of analytics and logs. So you will see basically just for a single transaction, a single request here, all the logs that we can display in the UI. All right, so what I want to show you now, and this is still the recording ongoing, let me just rewind this a little bit, probably like this. So we spoke about day 0 installation, right? But what if later you want to add a new service engine on the top of this deployment? So you have this deployment here, And let's say you started with 2 service engines, as you saw in the UI, and you want to add one. Well, what we have is this option here. You select this deployment and you can click on add a service engine. You need after to select on which cloud you want to deploy those service engines and which service engine group. So in this case, the cloud is Cloud VMC and the service engine group is default cloud. Then you go for the same configuration. How many service engine I want? 1, it's fine. And then the network placement, on which management network I want to place this new service engine, on which VIP network I want to place this new service engine. Then you select the IP for each guy if you don't want to use DHCP, and then you go for next. It tells you a summary, and then you submit this guy, and he will deploy this new service engine automatically. So again, I fast forward this just to make sure it's okay with the timing today. And as you can see, after I had 2 service engines, and now I have a 3rd service engine, which has been installed or deployed automatically by EasyAvi Fling. So what you can do after, if you go to your application, remember I told you it's all about elasticity. You go back to your virtual service, my app 1, and what I can do, I can scale. I can say I want more than 2 service engines. And now I have the 3 service engine done. You can check this on the dashboard where you will see that I have 21, 22, and 23 service engine working for this application. And later, if you don't need that, you can always do a scaling. So it gives you an idea about what we can do with this EasyAvi Fling, making day 0 and day 1 operation very easy to bring AVI on the top of VMC.
Nick, there is a question on if you can just highlight some of the key analytics, because that's a very powerful aspect of AVI. So if you can just revisit and highlight some of the key, analytics features that we can accomplish, that would be great.
Sure. So give me just 1 sec to show you that. So this is the AVI controller that I deployed thanks to EasyAvi. So as I told you, on the top of this AVI controller, it creates 2 very basic applications. One is called App1, the other is called DNS. So if you click on App1, for instance, you have this dashboard where you can see the configuration of this application. And as Serbi mentioned, out of the box, we bring a lot of analytics, a lot of logs and real-time metrics. So what you can show this by just checking this application 1. And it brings this end-to-end timing. So no traffic was eating this application. But if I go to the logs here, probably, let me try it out just to make sure I can generate some traffic. Just give me 1 sec. Let me copy this guy. Just make sure first it works. So you see, this is my very basic application. I generate some requests here, and you see the load balancing working. I think if you do /avi, you have another application because we are doing content switching. Anyway, it's just to show you and to generate traffic while we are talking. And if I go to this app 1, at some point, I should see all the logs. Okay, so let me just change this guy to analytics and to enable this guy here, save, and to redo that again. And that should allow me to see some traffic, hopefully. Okay, so you can see some 404 here, so probably other persons are trying to reach this this application, but the takeaway is definitely that for each request, we bring these kind of logs for each single request. So you see the client of the IP of the client. You see the location. Of course, this IP is private IP, so location we can't determine. But if it was public IP, we were able to determine basically the country of this IP address. You can see the operating system, what kind of browser I am using, what kind of SSL version, and same kind of information for the load balancing. You want to understand what was the service engine which was handling this request. Well, you have the answer here. It was 10.1.21, and you can even see which vCPU you handle this request. And you have same information for the headers. If I click on this link here, view all headers, you can see all what I sent from the client, all what I sent to the server, and same for the response. All what I received from the server and all what I received, or all what I sent to the client. So very useful, and especially it avoids you to do this TCP dump stuff that I mentioned at the beginning. Because of course you can retrieve this by TCP dump, but it will take minutes, if not hours, where here you just have to bring the UI, and then very easily you can basically start your troubleshooting. I want to see all the 404. You just click here, 404, and all of the magic, you can see all the response 404, and you understand that probably I have some issues with this IMG's folder here because it generates a lot of 404. So very quickly, it shows you how easy it is to troubleshoot thanks to this analytics engines that we bring out of the box.
Thanks, Nick.
No problem. Any other questions that we can answer?
Please let us know if there are any other questions.
Okay. What I just wanted to let you know is don't hesitate to download this EasyAvi Fling. Again, sorry, this is not this one. This EasyAvi Fling on this URL that I shared in the chat window. And then the installation of the Fling itself is very easy. Basically, you just need to spin up a new OVF or a new OVA inside your SDDC or outside your SDDC, and just make sure that you have the API connectivity, and then after it's just a UI. And something that I wanted to mention as well, if I cancel this guy here, you can always retrieve all the output of your deployment here. So basically, if I extend this guy, you can still see the different parameters of my deployment, including the IPs of my controllers, the IP of my virtual service, HTTP, DNS, and my credential to connect to the AVI controller. Now, let's be honest, sometimes we have bugs as everyone, so that something quite useful is you can go to the logs here. And from the logs, if something went wrong, you can see what happened here. And you have different kind of logs to tell you why basically it didn't work. Just to give you a small overview of this tool, and just to finish with this UI, let me log in, sorry. To finish with the UI, if later, let's say it's a proof of concept and you want to destroy everything, you have the option here. Just need to select your deployment, you delete. Either you delete it from the this AVI Fling, or you delete it from the AVI Fling and also you destroy everything. And in this case, it will remove everything that I've been creating, including the service engine, the AVI controller, and all the configuration that have been done in vCenter/NSX/VMC. So just to give you the full picture about how you can manage the life cycle of your AVI deployment using EasyAvi.
That's great. And the download link is, Nick put it in the chat, as well as it's available on the in the slide in the deck as well, which you will be receiving along with this recording in the follow-up email. All right. I think we don't have any more questions. This was really great. Thank you so much, Nick, for your time.
Thank you, Surabhi, for the help.
Yeah, and we can give some time back to everybody to absorb this. Thanks a lot, everyone, for attending this webinar. You all have a great day.
Thanks, Surabhi. Thanks all for joining. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.